Western Australia has just 3 weeks to prepare for a new normal as the state's strict border restrictions will loosen and WA will be reunited with the rest of the country once again. Joining us live now is Chris Rodwell from WA's Chamber of Commerce and Industry. Chris, are Western Australians ready for what's coming?
Great to be with you. Well, there's no doubt that there's going to be a major adjustment here. We absolutely understand that that's going to be the case. What we can do is work with our business community on their continuity plans. There's no doubt, for instance, that supplier arrangements, customer arrangements are going to need to change. We're going to need some contingency in there. And of course, your own workforce. If Monday morning's traffic is anything to go by, then there's certain companies that are already transitioning to working from home arrangements as a result of the small Omicron outbreak that we've had with some very limited community transmission. And businesses are going to need to look at, do they have different shift arrangements? How about the crossover between those shifts? So these are all things that the business community needs to look at in order to support the community and support the economy.
Do you expect that in the short term businesses will suffer? Businesses here on the East Coast are struggling with the Omicron outbreak, suffering with those work shortages, as well as customers feeling reluctant to go out because of the amount of infection that's in there in the community. Do you think that's likely to happen over in WA on the 5th of February?
Yes, certainly if we look at the East Coast as an example, then that is what we're seeing, and there will be some immediate term impacts as a result of this Feb 5 opening, if, of course, we don't get an Omicron outbreak before then and we start moving to those arrangements and impacts of that beforehand. So we know that's the case. What we've got to do is limit that as much as possible, and that's why working with businesses to understand what continuity plans they have in place. And we just say to every Western Australian business, if you haven't looked at those plans, if they need a bit of rejigging, then now is the time to do that, because there's no doubt that there will be some immediate term impacts. But ultimately, this economy, along with the national economy, has been wearing significant supply chain impacts, skill shortage impacts for some time. So these are not new issues. They're just exacerbated by the most recent outbreak on the East Coast. And no doubt as we reopen, we'll have some immediate term impacts. Beyond those next couple of months, we certainly hope that the economy will be of its own steam and less relying on, I suppose, state government support or federal government support. And because we need to resolve these significant impacts, certainly if you're in hospitality, tourism and events, this has been a very long pandemic.
What about in the long run? Do you expect the businesses will be better off as a result of the borders coming down by the end of the year?
Well, that's certainly the hope. I mean, if we look at, we've got an economy here that is 48% made up of the mining sector, but there's other sectors beyond that, and the hospitality, tourism, events industries have found the going particularly tough. But it's across the board that we're seeing these constraints, albeit that the Western Australian economy has performed better than pretty much every other state in the nation. We need, however, to deal with those issues while supporting the health of everyone in the community. At the end of the day, Western Australia is very outward looking as an economy. We account for something like half the nation's trade. And so we really need to get back into those international markets. We need to see travel to other parts of the nation so that our economy can run on its own steam. And we expect that over time, those supply chain constraints and those skill shortages will be alleviated as a result of us reopening.
And how are businesses handling the pressure of ensuring that its workers are fully vaccinated?
Yeah, that's obviously been a significant task, and the WA government mandated that something like 3/4 of the workforce needed mandatory vaccinations, the first group of which those mandatory vaccinations have gone through, and the second dose will be required for the second group in certain sectors by the end of this month. The important thing now is that everyone really goes and gets that third dose. I had mine a week or so ago, and of course we'll see the 5 to 11-year-olds start to get those doses as well. As a business community, we've certainly supported those efforts. They've been difficult sometimes to put in place. But I think we know that vaccinations are a really significant protection for the health, not only of our community, our family, our friends, but also the economy in the long run.
Chris Rodwell, we have to leave it there. Thanks so much for your time.
A real pleasure.